On today's episode of Homemaking with Purpose, I'm going to show you what I've been doing these past few weeks, and I'm going to revisit a classic HWP where I had a chat with my friend Mary from Mary's Nest, where we talked about how to save money on food during these inflationary times. Let's get that started. And just so you all know, I have been so much more relaxed since I've not been doing the weekly Homemaking with Purpose shows. I've not been so tired. I've not felt so overwhelmed. I've had more time to spend with family and friends. And I've had more time just to do a few things that I've been needing to do or wanting to get to. And one of the things that I've been doing, I've been making jams and jelly. Now my husband was like, so what's this jam making all of a sudden? Why the rush? And I said, babe, it's jam making time. Right now the weather's warmed up, the produce is coming in, it's fresh, it's at its peak. So this is the time when you make jelly and jam and start doing whatever food preserving you're going to be doing for the year. So this is the first jam that I made, and it is a peach jam. And I got the recipe from this book, Small Batch Preserving, and I learned about this cookbook from Leona at Ebony, Ivy, and Time in the Kitchen. She had made some preserves and shared this cookbook, so I went to her channel, bought the cookbook, and now I've made all of this. So the first one I made was this small batch peach jam, and you make it in the microwave. I had not made any jam in the microwave before. I made 3 jars, and you can see this one is just about empty. And then these are the other 2 jars left from that batch. And it is absolutely, positively delicious. It is so good. It's great on toast, on English muffins, and on cornbread muffins. The problem that I had is the fact that since it was made in the microwave and you put it in this microwavable dish that's supposed to be like 2 quarts, but it would bubble up so I had to really watch it to make sure that it didn't bubble over. But I'm really pleased with the results, and it's a soft jam. Now I have to wonder if it's this soft because maybe it didn't get to cook as long as it should have because I had to keep opening the microwave so that it didn't bubble over, or if this is just the way it's supposed to be. But I like it like this. So it's delicious. And so the next day I made another batch of peach jam, only this time I cooked it on top of the stove. So you can see that the colors are just a little bit different. First of all, they were a different batch of peaches, so this one is lighter than this one. And again, it's a little bit of a soft jam, but it's not as soft as the other. But it did taste pretty good. So I've got 6 jars of peach jam. I've got another one of these somewhere. So I've just been poring over this cookbook and looking to see what are all the different recipes that are in there. So I've been reading the recipes like I'm reading a novel, and I came across the recipe for apple cider jelly, and I had a ½ gallon of apple cider in the fridge that I needed to use up. So I made some jars of apple cider jelly. Now this is small batch preserving, so these recipes only make anywhere from like 3 to 5 jars in a batch. And so I've got 3 jars of this apple cider jelly, and look how clear and beautiful it is. This is one that was cooked on top of the stove and not in the microwave, and the jelly is really good, and it's good on cornbread muffins and on toast, and I love apple jelly. So this one's really good, and there is a cinnamon stick that you put in the jar that kind of sits right there on the top that gives it a little bit of added flavor. So I'm really pleased with this one. Now, a few days later, I made this strawberry jam, and this is another one that turned out really well. Now, I've got about 6 jars of this strawberry jam, but I didn't want to put more than 3 of each up here, but it turned out really, really nicely. Now, this is one that you baked in the oven. I've never made any oven jam before, So I just wanted to try it. I wanted to give it a good experiment to see what was what. And so you put the strawberries and the sugar in a pot. You let it sit on top of the stove for like 24 hours. And then you add some other seasonings, and then you pour it into two 13 by 9-inch dishes. And then you bake it in the oven for so many hours. Once you do that, you put it in your jars, and then you process it as normal. This was another recipe that I found to be quite interesting. The problem that I had with this batch was that when I was doing the cooking on top of the stove, I wasn't able to get all of the foam off the top. So I thought, well, I'll be able to skim it when I put it in the oven. And whereas I was able to skim some of it off the top when I put it in the oven, I wasn't able to get it all. So I do have a couple little streaks in my jam. But other than that, it tastes fine. And this jam, to me, seems a little bit more like strawberry preserves than strawberry jam. And it could be I just didn't chop the strawberries up enough before I started putting it together. But it was really good. So I'm really glad that I got this one done. Now this is the peach conserve. It's not a jam, it's a conserve. And the difference with a conserve is that you will also have things like raisins, nuts, and additional dried fruit that may be in there. And so if you take a look at it, you can just kind of see there's some nuts in there, there's hazelnuts, there's raisins, and a few other things. This one's cooked on top of the stove, and then once it's cooked as long as it's supposed to, you put it in your jars and then you process it for 10 minutes as usual. And I had a little left over, so I poured some off into this jar. And this is another really good one. Oh, and I forgot to mention that a conserve is kind of like a marmalade because it's got lemon rind and orange rind in it, as well as the nuts and then the dried fruit, that kind of thing. But it is absolutely delicious, and it is meant to be used, you can use it like as you do a jam on muffins and English muffins and things like that. But it's also good to pair it with meat. Let's say you're serving pork or something like that. You can serve it on the side, kind of like you do cranberry sauce. So I have 4 jars of this, and it'll be interesting to see what my family thinks about it. I like it, and if you like marmalade, you will like that. If you're not a marmalade lover, then it may not be one of your favorites because it does have that marmalade taste to it. So as I said earlier, I found this cookbook on Leona Dooley's channel, Ebony, Ivy, and Time in the Kitchen. So I will link Leona's channel in the description box so you can check her out. And then you can also find this cookbook in my Amazon store, so please check that out. I've also been preserving some herbs, and I'll take you out and let you see my little herb garden. It's very small this year, but it has been quite productive. So I've got some dried sage here, and then some drying parsley here, and some drying basil here. And what I do is I'll clip them off of the plant, then give them a gentle rinse, pat them dry with a towel, and then I'll put them in the paper bag and date it, and then let it sit in the paper bag for about 2 or 3 weeks until they're crinkly dry. And then I'll put them in a jar, and here's one where I had dried some thyme, and this is all that I've got from that batch so far because thyme leaves are very small, and once you strip the stems off and you're just done with the leaves, it doesn't make a lot, so you need a lot of thyme to make a whole jar, but it smells wonderful, and I use a lot of thyme, so I'm glad I've got more to come. And one of the other things that you can do with the thyme is you can freeze it. You can rinse it, put it in ice trays, and then freeze it that way, and then put the little ice cubes in bags, and you have fresh thyme to use all year long. I also have some frozen basil leaves. Look how pretty and green they are. So if I have a recipe that calls for fresh basil leaves, and it's at the end of the season, and I don't have any more fresh out there, I can use this. And then here's some rosemary that I've frozen, and I picked it at its tenderest, and then I froze it promptly. And then here are some sage leaves that I froze also. So I like to use fresh sage leaves when I'm roasting a chicken sometimes. So I've got that. And then I've also frozen some strawberries. And look at these. Notice they still move around in the bag. And with the strawberries, what I did was I prepped them as if I was going to use them, and then I put them on a baking sheet and flash froze them. Once they were frozen, I then scraped them up off the sheet and put them in a bag, and then made sure once I got the air out that they were still loose so I can take out what I need and not have one solid block of frozen strawberries. And yesterday I spent some time washing my husband's hats. He has a lot of hats. He probably has enough hats for the free world, but the ones he likes to wear most often were dirty, and he wanted me to wash them, and there had been a couple of questions about how to wash baseball hats. And I showed how to wash them by hand and how to wash them in the washing machine. So these will show up on my channel as YouTube shorts. So if you've got men or boys in your home with stinky baseball caps, or if you've got a few stinky baseball caps of your own, then please check out those YouTube shorts. Now, it's going to take me a day or two to get them edited and uploaded, so you're going to need to come back to check those out. On another note, I took one of my sisters grocery shopping the other day, and she wanted to go to Walmart instead of Kroger because she felt like Walmart had cheaper prices. So I was like, okay, fine. I took her to Walmart. And it was really quite interesting for me as I looked around at the various things in the store. And we walked around and went from aisle to aisle. She hadn't been grocery shopping for a while, so she needed absolutely everything. So I believe we walked up and down every aisle at Walmart on the grocery section. And I haven't been grocery shopping like that lately. I've been eating from my prep, or shall I say from my extended pantry. So mostly when I've gone to the grocery store, I've been going for perishables, produce, milk, bread, eggs and cheese, that kind of thing. So I had not looked at the wide variety of things that we were looking at on her grocery haul. And I must say the food prices were absolutely crazy. It did seem as if everything was up, and she was pretty much in shock at the food prices as well because she hadn't been shopping herself for a little while. So as I walked around the store with her, I was absolutely struck by how difficult it is for people on a limited budget or on supplemental nutritional assistance program, also known as SNAP benefits or food stamps, how difficult it is to buy food, healthy food, on a budget. And produce wasn't exactly cheap. Now, right now, some of the things in the produce section are in. It's their season, so they're a little bit cheaper than others or than other times. But still, it was a little bit more difficult to try to eat healthy on a budget. And I do think that some of the prices at Walmart was comparable to some of the prices that I see at Kroger, depending upon what it was, store brands, that kind of thing, or when Kroger is having a sale versus when Walmart is having a sale. But it's all relative. And so with that being said, it made me think about a conversation that I had had, an interview actually, that I had had with my friend Mary from Mary's Nest a year ago today on Homemaking with Purpose. And I thought this would be a good time to bring back a few excerpts from that HWP classic. One of the topics we got into was the price of canned chicken. So let you look at that clip, and then I'll let you know what I found at Walmart.
Well, I really found it very stressful going to the grocery store and how expensive things were. I was there yesterday and I was shocked because I used to be able to get 6 cans of chicken, like all packed together, it's my grocery store's brand. And
Mm-hmm.
they're pretty good sized cans of chicken. And they were $12. So that would work out to be $2 a can of chicken.
Mm-hmm.
When I was there yesterday, they were $19.97. That's a significant increase.
Now today at Kroger, you can find a can of white chicken breast about this size for $2.99 a can, or you can get a 6-pack for $14.99. At Walmart, these same size single cans were $1.39, or you could get a 4-pack of this size for $9.99. So Walmart definitely had a better price on the canned chicken like that. When I buy the canned chicken though, I like to buy this Grable Country boneless chicken, and you get not just chicken breast, but you get like different parts of the chicken in here. So you're getting like more of a whole chicken, only enough of a whole chicken to fit into this can. And it's about 13 ounces, and one of these cans today is probably about $7 or $8.99. So there's that. And one of the most interesting points, at least for me, that came out of the interview with Mary is how we are being forced to juggle gas and food. So if you think about it, gas prices have gone up significantly. So some people are having to consider moving some of their food budget over to the gas budget so that they can purchase gas to get where they need to go. And so they're having less money to spend on food. Let's listen to what Mary has to say, and then I'll come back.
Maybe about a year and a half ago, here we were paying like $1.59 a gallon.
Mm-hmm.
So that has significantly cut into my grocery budget because I've had to like siphon some money over to pay for gas. And
Well,
we,
exactly.
we just have one car, and I can imagine if you have two cars. And so I just started thinking, okay, so I said to my husband, all righty, we're going to have to like change up a little what we cook or what I cook.
Mm-hmm.
As my husband would say, I'm the chief cook and bottle washer in the family. And I said, we're going to have to, like kind of change up. And, would you be okay if we, maybe did a meatless meal and, maybe something else? I've kind of always been a thrifty cook.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I was ever making filet mignon or,
Mm-hmm.
New York strip, fancy cuts of meat, nothing like that. But I said, we gotta like even pull back a little more than, get even a little more thrifty.
So you can see that because of the price of gas, and not just in Texas, but everywhere, that many of us are being forced to economize in ways we may not have had to do previously. So tell me, how have you been forced to economize? Or have you? Have you been looking side-eyed at your gas budget and your grocery budget? Tell me in the comment section below. And I must say, I missed it at the time when we went through that video previously when Mary said they only have one car. I was like, one car? And we have two cars. And when you have two cars, you have the insurance, you have the gas, you have the maintenance, you have all the things that's required for a car. And I can certainly see the day when my husband and I may only need one car because we just about go everywhere together now. He usually takes me everywhere because we just do. So I can certainly see the day coming when we may just have one car. But I don't know. It's like sometimes I go places that he doesn't. Like today he's out fishing and I'm home running errands, that kind of thing. So, but if you're forced to economize in that way, it certainly would be, I think, less of a problem for us to go down to one car and get rid of some of those expenses than to have to economize more on food. What are your thoughts? And I did enjoy our discussion on budget meals, particularly her son's comment. Her son was so funny when he talked about the budget meals. So here's that clip. You guys check that out and then I'll come back.
We were chatting, and this is a couple of Sundays ago, and I was saying, boy, I really got to bring out the budget meals. And I was trying to remember, like, because she was very thrifty and the things she would make. And I said, I have to, whatever I make, I'm going to share with, if it's good, I'm going to share this with people.
Well, I saw that one of the ones you shared was the tuna pie, I believe it
Oh
was.
my gosh.
And
That
it
is
was
so
just
good.
it was so funny that you had made tuna pie because that very day or either the day before, my husband and I were making tuna patties. He said he had seen something online, and
Uh-huh.
when he was little, his mom made salmon patties. So
Yes.
he wanted to make tuna patties. So we were making that. And I'm like, oh, look, Mary's. But now I didn't video mine for the channel. But I thought,
Mhm.
okay, and they came out so good because, I'm not a big fish eater. They
Uh-huh.
came out so good. I thought, well, I'm going to have to make this for my channel. And then, boom, there was yours, your
Oh,
tuna pie. So,
make your tuna patties. I would love to see that. I'd love to see how to do that. Yeah, I got to tell you, My husband loves tuna noodle casserole, but my son not so much. And so he's been staying with us for now. And I said, I saw this. I couldn't show the cookbook in the video because I didn't buy it. I saw it at a used bookstore and it was like vintage and it was expensive. So I was just reading the recipe, but I got such a kick out of it because some of those Depression era recipes, they assume a lot. So you kind of got to guess and fill in the blanks. But I loved it because it sounded like a chicken pot pie, but without the crust. Because it was potatoes and veggies and a white sauce, and then you put the tuna fish in, and then you put the biscuits on top. And those biscuits were so clever because I never saw biscuits made like that, where you roll it and then you cut them. It reminded me of that thing, the store. I don't know if they still make them anymore, but you bang it on the counter and it
Oh
pops
yeah, a can of
open.
biscuits. You just they pop open. You just
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I buy those all the time.
And this you make these kind of, but they're homemade, but it's very similar. And then you put them on top of the casserole. Well, I have to tell you, my son's not a fan of tuna fish type things,
Hmm.
and he's not a fan of tuna noodle casserole. And whenever I would make it, he would always say, "Oh my gosh, the budget food," it was like the thrifty food. But my husband inhaled it, and I think he had like for lunch or something. And when our son came for dinner, I said, "It's actually really good. You're going to really like it." And he loved it. So
Good.
I said, "Okay, this is something good, to share with people because it's very inexpensive to make."
Her son's comments made me think about what one of my particular adult sons might say about budget meals as well. So I can definitely relate to that. In the meantime, what is your go-to recipe for a budget meal? How are you making adjustments to your meal planning to accommodate inflation? Inquiring minds want to know. And one of the things that I found so interesting about that whole conversation was about the use of bone broth. Here's that clip. What are some of your favorite, or your, we'll say your most budget friendly meat and protein buys?
Well, I would say that it used to be like canned chicken, but that's like gotten kind of expensive now. But I will say that I think if now I know it's hard if you're a little fish averse, but if even though the canned fish has gone up in price, tuna fish is still a pretty good buy. So I feel that's a good protein source, and you can really stretch it. And I'll give you a tip about all of this. When it comes to protein foods, of course you have beans and you have grains, and then you combine them and that becomes a complete protein and all of that. But you know what the secret is? You can stretch the whatever protein you're using. So maybe, like I had a budget meal where I made meatballs, but I put in like a lot of oatmeal and I only used a half a pound of ground beef. And then I made spaghetti sauce and so on and so forth. But my secret is any meal you serve, especially if you have kids and teenagers who they really need the protein because they're growing and you have to make sure that they get the right amount of nutrition. Because I always did this with my son, because when my son was young and we were first married, we moved out here because it was less expensive and I had become a stay-at-home mom. Money was very tight.
Mhm.
And uh, the secret is always serve bone broth. Serve it as a soup before the main meal, or serve it. My son loves it to this day in a mug with some sea salt, because bone broth is what's known as a protein sparer. And so what that means is it will eke out in itself. It's high in protein, bone broth, because bone broth is rich in collagen, and collagen is a protein. So the bone broth is rich in protein, but this thing that it's called a protein sparer means that it allows you to extract every little last bit of protein in any food you're eating. It makes your digestive system really absorb all of the protein. So that is really what I find to kind of be a little bit of a secret to get as much protein in a very inexpensive way. And I'll tell you how to do it inexpensively, because beef bones have gone up in price.
Mhm.
Somebody was just I think they were either, I think they sent me an email or leave them a comment, I'm not sure. And they were saying that they went to pick up some beef bones to buy and it said $30. And she said she dropped them so fast, like they were on fire.
Wait, for bones?
Yes.
Hmm.
And I've been seeing this. People have been telling me that, because bone broth has become kind of shishi, you know.
Well, okay, so now let's talk about that just for a minute.
Mhm.
Um, so when we talk about bone broth and serving that like with the meals to help stress the protein, I was just reading something about like back in the Depression era or even earlier, and that they used to serve like the bone broth as a tea with the meal. So maybe you'd have like a little cup of bone broth that was warmed up, and you'd have that as tea or as a warm drink with your breakfast or something like that, or with another part of your meal. So that is certainly a way that you can add the additional proteins. And I had not thought of that until I read that. So, okay.
Oh
So
yes,
tuna fish,
that
making your own meatballs and extending them with, say, oatmeal and other
oatmeal,
things.
or you can use anything. You can grind up oatmeal, and you can use like the oat groats. You can use, which always look to be buying whatever's the least expensive form of a grain. And you can use barley. Barley is really
I
great.
love barley.
And people do, nobody notices it. But the secret with the bone broth, if you do get a whole chicken and you roast it, save that whole carcass and make your bone broth with that. That's a very inexpensive way to make bone broth. And if you want an even cheaper way, if you can find them periodically, my grocery store will have them, and periodically Walmart will have them. Are the chicken feet, and they call them the chicken paws. I know this is your favorite subject, Denise, but you can take 6 chicken feet and throw them in a stock pot with some like vegetable scraps that you've just saved, like the tips of carrots and some bottom
Okay.
of celery and some onion skins. You will have such a rich gelatinous bone broth. And now I don't know, everything's like changing constantly, but the last time I bought a pack of chicken feet, it said chicken paws. It was good. It had about more than 12 feet in the
Yeah,
package.
they've got quite a few in the pack.
For about $10, you can get a kielbasa and some cabbage, and that's a very traditional kind of German. There are a lot of German settlers here in the Hill
Mhm.
Country, and so that's like a common dish that you see a lot of people of German ancestry making. And I think that advice uh, from the viewer was terrific. That cut the kielbasa in half and divide that up into 2 meals and just put more cabbage in,
Mhm.
because I made kielbasa and cabbage, and the whole thing cost me $10. It was a healthy amount. I think you could easily have served 6 people
Mhm.
from that. So that's definitely a budget meal.
Okay.
But I
And
think
so what's
mashed
your
chicken with
favorite budget for what
my
is your
favorite.
yeah, what is your favorite budget-friendly Sunday dinners? Because, and I say Sunday dinner because, that's the time where we typically have more time to cook, and the family tends to sit at the table a little bit longer, spend a little more time together. So what's your favorite budget-friendly Sunday dinner?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I think I'll tell you what my budget friendly is in a sec. But if I can find it at a good price, I'll always roast a chicken on Sunday. I always grew up with roast chicken, and
That's us.
I love that as the
Chicken
Sunday.
on Sunday.
But what I've been doing a lot lately is I've just been, and this is probably part of my Italian heritage. I have been making a big bowl of spaghetti, and I'll do a meat sauce. And you have to remember, spaghetti's, a lot of people think, oh, white flour. No, no, no. Spaghetti is actually made from durum semolina, and semolina is the middlings when they sift the durum flour to get a whole, an all-purpose durum flour.
Mhm.
But semolina is the middlings, and it's actually very nutritious. And so I'll make a big bowl of spaghetti. My family loves this. And then I'll just take half a pound of the ground beef, which normally I would like use the whole
The
pound.
whole pound.
And then I'll take, rather than my usual you know, when I go all out back in the day, 4 sweet sausages, 4 spicy Italian sausages, I would really, beef it up. Now I'll do like 2 sweet sausages, 2 spicy sausages, a half a pound of ground beef. Nobody misses it. What I do is I'll make a big bowl that's like a bolognese, a meat
Mhm.
sauce, but then I'll add a couple of cans of, instead of tomato sauce, I'll add a couple of cans of the chopped tomatoes, so
Yes.
it kind of bulks it out. And then I'll just do I'll make an Italian bread with sourdough, and it's basically like making a boule. It costs like 50 cents to make when you make
Okay.
them homemade. And I'll just like elongate it, not like a baguette, but more like a loaf of Italian
Mhm.
bread. I'll bake that up. I'll split that. I put on a little butter, a little parsley, which, here most of the time the climate's pretty good, where I can grow a lot of stuff. And I'll just do a little fresh oregano, maybe a little flat leaf Italian parsley, a little powdered, little garlic powder. These are all inexpensive things. And the bread maybe cost me about 50 cents to make, and they're happy. Big thing of spaghetti. I have leftovers. They inhale the bread. That if I get smart, I'll make more than one loaf at a time.
I got a kick out of her talking about how she would use kielbasa sausage and cabbage to make a meal for her family. And she's quick to talk about her German and Italian heritage and the kinds of foods that she likes to make. Well, when I was a girl growing up, we had many a meal where we utilized ham or smoked sausage or pork chops or even ham hocks to season cabbage. And we would have cabbage and beans and maybe some cornbread as a meal. And when she talked about making spaghetti and using several different kinds of sausages, maybe a sweet Italian sausage and a hot Italian sausage and some other kind of sausage to make a big pot of spaghetti, well, there were many a meal that we had with spaghetti. Now, we used ground beef, but we'd have a big pot of spaghetti with ground beef, some pasta sauce, and maybe some kind of a muffin, some greens or green salad, and we would have a meal. So I say that to say that we are all so much more alike than what we think. So my question to you is, do we still need a prepper pantry or an extended pantry or a four corners pantry, as Mary likes to say? And I'd have to say yes. I've been eating quite a bit for the past few months from my extended pantry. I've been using some of the canned goods, I've been using some of the canned meats, I've been using some of the staples like flour and sugar. So I've been using those things from last year or the year before's prices today. When I made my jam and my jellies, the sugar that I used was from my extended pantry. So I say yes because anything that you can purchase today will inflation proof you for the prices next year. So I would definitely agree that you still need a prepper pantry or an extended pantry. And one of the things that we do get into in the interview is how you can begin to build a prepper pantry or an extended pantry for yourself. I'll let you listen to that clip. You can hear what Mary has to say about how to begin to do that gradually. But I've also got a video where I show you how I built my prepper pantry, and I will link that in the description box below.
The first thing, do your inventory, then figure out where you're going to put any extra food you might get lucky and find in your working pantry. And then after that, make your list. I always say take an extra $5. I know it doesn't go far today, but sometimes that's all we can squeak and eke out,
Yes.
and take that $5 and buy a few non-perishable foods that you think you might need. Maybe a can of tuna, maybe a box of spaghetti, simple things.
Jar of pasta sauce.
A jar of pasta sauce, things that you say, okay, I can make a meal with this. And then little by little each week, with that $5, then that you're adding to your grocery budget, you're going to find that in a couple of weeks, you're getting a nice little supply of food.
And I really think we need to take advantage of those skills that our mothers and that our grandmothers and our great grandmothers had in regards to food preservation. They planted a garden and they raise chickens and other meat animals, and they preserve their food by either canning, salting, or freezing. Now, I live in the city, so we can't raise chickens, we can't raise cows, we cannot raise any kind of meat animal in the city that I live in, at least not in the city limits. So one of the things that I plan to do is to learn how to pressure can meats. But in the meantime, I'm going to pick up a can of this already canned meat from Grable Country Meats. I get this at Kroger. You can also get it in Walmart and other places. But until I learn how to pressure can my own, I'm going to pick up a can or two each week. Maybe I'll add $10 additional to my grocery budget so that when I go, I can pick up some additional cans of meat. For those of you that already know how to pressure can meat, then you might consider picking up chickens and other meats when they're on sale and pressure canning them yourself so that you have those things on your extended pantry shelf, so you're not held hostage by the prices in the store. So when I think about some of the prepper pantry videos that I would see, a lot of it would be about disastrous things happening, some kind of a war or the grid going down and all this kind of stuff. And I'm not saying that's not going to happen, but I like to take the approach of being proactive, because as homemakers, this is what we should do. And as we look at the prices of food and how things are going up, even if they're going up slowly, they're going up. We can look this year and see how things are different from last year. I think it certainly makes complete sense to be able to build an extended pantry for yourself. And one of the ladies that jumped on a Fly Lady live stream that I was on last week said they had been out of power for 4 days. She lost everything in her freezer, and they were out of power because of some weather element, storms or something like that. And she said nobody in their town had power, nobody, even the stores, nobody had nothing because they'd been out of power for like 4 days. So some canned meats like these would be helpful during those times, but also it can help you protect your meat budget next year by taking advantage of purchasing some of these kind of items this year. And you may choose not to invest in a pressure canner, and I'm not mad at you for that. If that's not something you don't want to learn to do, it's okay. But I encourage you then to use the option to pick up canned meats at your convenience. I shouldn't say at your convenience, at your inconvenience. Every week or every grocery haul, I encourage you to pick up at least 1 or 2 cans of canned meat, to put those aside in your extended pantry so that you can hedge your bets for the food inflation next year at today's prices. And I also encourage you to look for the things on sale. When I go to Kroger, the first thing I do is head for the manager's special to see what's on sale, what's marked down. I will pick up something extra, and then those things go into the freezer. And that being said, a freezer is certainly a homemaker's best friend, because you can stock up on things that you find at a good price or a reasonable price, hedging your bets against food inflation. And I've got a video where I talk about a freezer is a prepper's best friend. I will also link that in the description box below, so be sure to check that out. Oh, and before I forget, let me say this video is brought to you by Aprondiva. Pretty and practical, we believe that an apron can be a homemaker's best accessory. Visit us at www.aprondiva.com. To check out the full episode of my interview with Mary, click here. To check out my 20-item capsule grocery haul, which helps you save money and meal plan effortlessly, click here.